Trump's unwillingness to do so, then at some point, I'm not certain the Republican Party will be a party that could possibly even exist in a diverse America.
John Costin, I'll turn to you. Our politics in this country exist on a spectrum between left and right. We were talking about normalizing of language here just a moment ago. The name of this rally, as white supremacists deemed it, was Unite the Right. Republicans could reject this. Are you surprised that we haven't heard more Republicans speaking out vociferously against what we're seeing here, the co-opting of that term even?
Well, I think it's an interesting challenge that's facing Republicans, and I'm very glad my co-panelist brought up the 2012 GOP autopsy that talked a lot about outreach. You're not seeing that coming forward as strongly. And, I would like to point out, Mitt Romney actually put out a statement yesterday on the anniversary of Charlottesville and very much calling out racism and anti-Semitism. But then again, you're seeing multiple candidates, including at least one who was invited to speak at today's event, Paul Nehlen in Wisconsin, who are embracing alt-right and more specifically anti-Semitic and white nationalist language. You've got an actual Nazi, now granted through kind of an accident of the Illinois political process, you've got a Nazi running for Congress in Illinois. It's interesting. I think that's the question that's, befuddled a lot of conservatives and a lot of Republicans is, how to best deal with these groups and deal with these people who believe that this message is a part of the Republican Party. And, that's not the way most Republicans feel.
Vegas, last question to you. We are seeing this come from cyberspace into real life, as we saw last week in Charlottesville. I think that was a wake-up call to many Americans to see the turnout there in Charlottesville. It's maybe a slightly diminished wake-up call that even 24 people showed up there today. That's still 24 people who are doing that. What difference does that make? When you look back on Charlottesville, as you describe it, there is this sort of, robust, but there is a conversation happening in cyberspace. To bring it into the real world, why is that so important? What does that say to you about these groups?
I think, as you say, last year in Charlottesville was a coming out party, right? And they'd spent that year trying to figure out how we go from the online into the real world. Richard Spencer told me right after the election that was their big challenge going forward. I don't think they really figured out how to do it yet. I still think they're very much trying to find their place within the larger movement. They've retreated online, sure, but there's still a really healthy debate going on online. There's still, their podcast network is huge. And another thing is that the far-right movement wasn't the end itself. The far-right movement was just a vehicle with which to bring these ideas into the mainstream. And as I think my co-panelist pointed out, you have a slew of basically